Tales of sea monsters date back centuries. Although these tales describe fantastical creatures that are not real, many of these stories were based on real deep-sea organisms. Once scientists were able to start exploring the ocean, they could piece together how these tales misidentified some of the marine life that lives deep below the ocean's surface. People today understand that sea monsters are not real. However, in the 14 and 1500s, sea monsters covered maps. At this time, the only information about marine creatures came from sailors, not scientists. Although they were experienced navigators and explorers, these sailors had no training or background in biology or anatomy. It's easy to understand how unusual and large sea creatures could quickly morph into tales of the kraken to the untrained eye. Due to limited technology, scientists were not yet able to explore the ocean and had to rely on sailors' tales for their information. As a result, European natural history books from the 15 and 1600s included a mix of real organisms and fictitious creatures from sea monster tales, as many reputable scientists believed that sea monsters were real. The kraken was even classified as a cephalopod and given a scientific name. In the 1800s, scientists started to question the validity of some of these creatures. Henry Lee spoke for most scientists when he wrote that many classical monsters were not entirely myth, but instead distorted portraits of real-life organisms. In the mid-1800s, it was recognized that the tales of the kraken were not true, but instead were highly exaggerated and embellished accounts of giant squids. Although giant squids can reach up to 60 feet in length and would be intimidating to any sailor, they are not bloodthirsty beasts that intentionally terrorize ships. Many of the other extreme sea monsters were also later reclassified as real marine organisms. Leviathan, a demonic sea serpent, was most likely inspired by sperm whales. And other sea serpents were realized to be oarfish, which can grow to be 36 feet long and serve as reliable predictors of deep-sea earthquakes and tsunamis. It's reasonable to deduce that sailors mistakenly believed that the oarfish were purposely causing such events as opposed to reacting to them. Similarly, the sea bishop was most likely a large squid, and hydra was most likely based on octopi, given their tentacles could easily be mistaken as extra heads by fearful sailors. Correctly identifying and piecing together the truth of these tales would have not been possible without the field of marine biology. Charles Wyville Thomson was one of the first marine biologists to accurately describe deep-sea organisms aboard the HSM Challenger, the first ship with an onboard laboratory. Further advancements in technology allowed humans to investigate the ocean at incredible depths inside crude vessels, commonly referred to as deep submergent vehicles. However, the vast majority of underwater exploration is achieved through robotics such as ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, and AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles. Crude vessels, ROVs, and AUVs are what allow scientists to study and learn about the creatures sailors hundreds of years ago misidentified and feared. Without this technology, the truth behind sea monster tales and much of what we know about the ocean would remain unknown. Nevertheless, sea monster tales still persist in pop culture. In the 1870s, Jules Verne popularized sea monsters in his book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In 1954, The Creature from the Black Lagoon and Godzilla hit the big screen, and have both continued to make reappearances since. Recent films, including Pirates of the Caribbean, The Shape of Water, and Luca, continue to feature sea monsters and increase their popularity. Sea monster tales persist in today's society, but are accepted as fiction. However, tales of misinformation that are accepted as fact still occur quite frequently today. In the case of sea monsters, misinformation came from sailors, but today it comes from social media. Just like in the 1500s, false information often comes from people who lack the background and qualifications to correctly interpret or convey their observations. It is not uncommon for people to make claims based on Facebook posts or incorrectly extrapolate conclusions from anecdotal evidence. For example, rampant misinformation about COVID-19, masks, and vaccines are spread as people make wild claims that exaggerate or misrepresent the truth due to a lack of knowledge and fear, just like sailors did hundreds of years ago. In the same way the field of science grew to use the scientific method and peer-reviewed studies, hopefully the general public can learn how to recognize reliable sources and fact-check information that's on the internet. Sea monsters were certainly something to fear, but what's scarier is how tales of misinformation spread and are accepted so quickly, both 500 years ago and today.